Hello, it's me. I'm in a whole different room of my house today, adding some visual interest with all my nerdy stuff. So I do have some process updates, but I'm not quite gonna share them yet. Hopefully that will be the next video. I thought something that would be really fun though is to do a kind of before version of the controversial parenting tag. So I see YouTubers do this all the time, and it's just your opinion on a variety of parenting decisions and things like that. But I've had a lot of talks with my friends about, what you think before you have a baby, what you think after, and how much that changes. Like, I'm never gonna let them watch TV or whatever. I think I'm pretty level-headed about these things, but I thought it would be really fun to go through them now as a person without a kid, and then come back in hopefully like 2 years and see what I stick to and what I've changed my mind on and things like that. So I have the little list here. Some of these are like political, controversial, whatever. I have never in my life been good at hiding my political views or things like that. So for the most part, this is without judgment. There's like maybe one area there's some judgment, but for the most part, it's without judgment. And yeah, we'll get into it. So it starts off with a bang, and it starts with pro-life or pro-choice. I'm pro-choice all the way. I have long, complex feelings that we're just gonna get real political right off the bat, because it starts with like, to be pro-choice, you need to be pro women having the option to get an abortion if they want or need one, but also pro women having the option to have a baby if they want or need one, which means being pro a strong social safety net. So to me, being pro-choice means that that option is available to have an abortion, but also that the option is available to have a child, which is in a lot of cases not true today, just because of the United States sucking at everything, basically. So strongly pro-choice, strongly wish that extended both ways a little bit more, but obviously nobody has to have an abortion if they don't want to. But there are scenarios where it is the best thing for everybody involved. And I think bringing an unwanted child into the world is one of the worst things you can do. And so none of that. So we'll just start off with that bang, and then we'll go to baby wearing. I don't really know what an opinion on baby wearing is. Like, that's cool, do it if you want. I plan to baby wear. I think it intuitively makes more sense to me than placing them in like a stroller or sitting them down, right? Most populations in the world don't do that. So I definitely want to get like a ring sling and then some different carriers. Again, I don't really know what an opinion is. Is anyone like, I hate baby wearing? I don't think so. So cool, baby wear however you'd like. Yeah. Circumcision, don't like it, not a fan. I'm Jewish, so like you can't even come at me with that. I just, it's not like everything else where I'm gonna be like, it's your baby and it's your choice, because it's their body and there's no real good reason for it. So this is where I'll probably get like in trouble, and there's probably some judgment. It's just like I don't think you're a terrible, horrible person if you do that. And a lot of people just don't realize that it's only common here and there's no real medical benefits and things like that. But I personally would never have that done. And I personally have never heard a reason I thought was good to have it done, like a reason that was good enough. So that's how I feel on that. But you all live your lives and just think about that. Maybe visit yourwholebaby.org or something like that. The next one is adoption, which again, I don't really know what. Is there anyone who's like, I hate adoption? Totally against it. Like, adoption's great in a lot of cases. I know there's a lot of agencies that are really unethical, and a lot of ways it's done that aren't great. Like, I read this book once called The Girls Who Went Away, about the old like teen mother homes you would get sent to, and then the babies would be sent out in closed adoptions. That's not great, but adopting can be great. Placing a baby for adoption can be a great option for a lot of people, as long as it's all done with the best interest of all parties in mind. So I don't really know what my opinion on adoption is supposed to be besides like do it in a thoughtful, humane way. Baby piercing, I feel kind of similar to this as I do on circumcision, except it's not permanent, but just why? Again, I've never heard a good reason to do this. Often you hear so you can tell the baby is a girl, which I'm not interested in, or just like, I think because babies can't speak or remember, we think it hurts them less, and that's not necessarily true. So I personally would never have a baby's ears pierced. I know it is cultural in some cases, in which case, sure, I don't really have room to talk in a lot of those situations, but I don't really understand why you would do that personally. Breast milk versus formula. This is the start of probably my answer to a lot of things, which is in an ideal world, every baby would have breast milk, right? Like in a perfect world, that would be the case because it is better for you in a lot of ways, but that's not the case. Some people can't breastfeed. If you're adopting, you necessarily can't. Some people just aren't able to take the time. Like financially, formula's expensive, but it's like schedule-wise too hard to breastfeed. There are a lot of reasons that are valid and real, and as long as your baby is getting fed and is healthy and loved, it doesn't really matter. So again, in an ideal world, yeah, sure, every baby could have breast milk, but that's just not the case, and it doesn't make someone like a bad parent if they're choosing one or the other. Let's see what's next. Cry it out. This is probably one where I'll like come back later. Right now I'm very like, no, none of that cry it out stuff. I do think babies should be like taught to sleep well on their own eventually. I don't like the term sleep training. That's a weird, I don't know, it's not a dog. But yes, babies need to learn to sleep and to self-soothe and to sleep on their own eventually and things like that. But I don't think leaving them crying alone in a room is the way to do it. So I don't know what like exact method I would use or what that would look like. But as of today, what is it, September 14th, 2020, I'm not a fan of the cry it out method, but we will see what I do because I sure like my sleep and I will probably do anything to get some sleep. Spanking, I'm a no on that. Fine with like, you know, like tapping a hand away or something like that. Spanking is just not really proven to work and doesn't really make sense to me to teach your child that like you hit someone if they do something wrong. So none of that. Co-sleeping. So I get a little pedantic because I'm like, technically co-sleeping by definition is the baby sleeping in the same room as you. And I'm a huge advocate of that. I can't imagine like putting my baby in a separate room. I don't know, that seems far away and like they're all alone. However, bed sharing is usually what co-sleeping means on things like this, which is the baby sleeping in the bed with you. I have no problem with that in general. There are ways to do it very safely, and as long as you're doing it safely, so you don't drink or smoke, you don't have like cracks up against the wall, you don't have a ton of blankets and pillows, things like that. Totally great, and I love the idea, especially like I mentioned, I like sleep, and it can be a great way to get more sleep. I personally will likely not be able to bed share because I move a ton when I sleep. Like I will wake up upside down on my bed, everything on the floor. I sleep with a ton of pillows and blankets, and I just wouldn't be safe to have a baby in my bed. So I will probably get one of those little like side sleeper things. Or worst case, a bassinet that sits like a foot away from my bed. So big fan of co-sleeping. Bed sharing depends on your situation. It can be safe, it can be unsafe, and I totally understand why some people aren't comfortable with it. But I think, again, intuitively, it makes sense to have your baby near you. Let's see. Vaccines. We like vaccines. Vaccines are good. In this house, we get vaccines. Unless you are medically unable to get vaccines for some legitimate reason, we get vaccines. End of the story. Homeschool versus public versus private versus charter school. We don't have time for me to talk to you about why I hate charter schools. That's a whole nother video for like a whole nother channel that I just don't have time for. So none of that. Also not homeschool for me. I will most likely send my children to public school, even if I could afford public or private school, which I can't. But if I could afford to send them to like the nicest private school, I don't feel comfortable with my children getting a better education just because I can pay for it. That's like the weird little Hufflepuff liberal in me. Like, why should I be able to pay for you to get a better education? That doesn't seem fair or right. And also public school educations can be good or fine. I went to a public school. It was not a very good public school. It's in South Florida, which is like one of the worst states in the country. It was not a good school. I turned out okay. I think there's a lot of value in the diversity of public schools and what's the word I'm looking for? Like MacGyvering your life in public schools and figuring things out. Unless I lived somewhere with a truly terrible, terrible, terrible school district that I didn't feel safe sending my child to, I don't think I would choose an option besides public school, because I think it's a valuable experience, and that private school just rubs me the wrong way personally. I don't want to pay for you to be better off than other people in that sense. Okay, the next one is medicating children. And again, I'm not really sure what that means. Does that mean giving them like baby Tylenol? Because sure, if you have a fever, I'm going to give you baby Tylenol. Like, if you're sick, I'm going to give you medicine. But medicating children sounds so like I'm going to give them chloroform or like Benadryl to go to sleep or something like that, which no. So I'm not sure about the phrasing there. I would give my children medicine if they were sick. It might mean like Ritalin or something for ADHD, and that would depend on the situation. I do think that is overdiagnosed, and so I would want to be careful about it. But if it was something that really helped my child, I would be open to it. Store versus homemade baby food. Again, in an ideal world, would we all make like beautiful organic baby food for our child out of the garden every day? Sure. Is that going to happen? No. Is your kid fed? Are they eating like the nutrients that they need? Then buy your food from wherever. Like, it's fine. Not everyone can home make baby food. Same answer basically on cloth versus disposable. Cloth is cool. It's good for the environment. It's supposed to be better in a lot of ways. Nice idea. Not feasible for everybody. Like, what if you don't have a washer dryer? What are you supposed to do? Frankly, I'm a baby and I just think it's gross. Like, I don't have a good ethical reason to say I would like to use disposable diapers besides like, yuck. Maybe I'll change my mind on that. I have some friends who do cloth. I have some friends who do cloth at home and disposable when they're out, which I think makes sense. But whatever works for you and you're able to do. Quick plug that corporations are responsible for environmental issues, not individual people. We will not save the planet by using a cloth diaper. Use that time to call your Congress and demand some consequences for fossil fuel industries. A couple others that I saw pop up randomly. Screen time, and I feel like this is probably the one where everyone comes on and is like, I will never let my kid have screen time. They're fine. I mean, obviously, like, I'm not going to plop my kid in front of a TV 24/7. That wouldn't be great. But I very much think that, like, kids born now are going to grow up and need to master screens. They need to know how to use a computer, a phone, different technology. And to deny them that is actually going to hurt them in the long run, because by the time they go to school, they'll probably be expected to have some of those skills. And to communicate with their peers, they're going to need to have some of those skills. So I want my child to be able to like safely and intelligently use the internet and use a phone and things like that in a way that will benefit them. And even beyond that, sometimes it's okay to just sit and watch TV. Sometimes we're all tired and we just need to sit down and watch The Lion King. And that's okay, I think, as long as they're getting engagement other times. What I've read is that screen time is only detrimental when it's used to replace other beneficial activities. So like if instead of teaching my child numbers, I just put them in front of little Einstein so they can learn to count, that's probably detrimental. But if I let them watch like a couple shows for fun, not Caillou, shows that aren't Caillou, also not Paw Patrol, not those, but you know, Disney movies, they're gonna be okay. Let's see. The other two things that I didn't quite see, but I'll add is just like my fun being a weirdo type things. I'm very into the non-gendered clothing type thing. I would like to keep that up. So I say all the time, I don't care if I have a boy, like I will be buying tutus because I like tutus and they're cute. And until you're old enough to tell me you don't want to wear a tutu, that's up to me. I would like to make sure I keep to that. I know I have friends who do that, and it took a little effort for them to remember, like, it's okay to buy a dress. It's okay to do this. But I very much think that. And so I would like to keep that up. I also have this weird rule I made in my head, and probably like YouTube or the earth will be obsolete by the time this becomes relevant. But I don't know. I just think it's fun, is that I'm not a sports person. And that's partially because they're boring. It's partially because they're outside, which I don't enjoy. And I also am very, sorry, my cat's over there and he's cute. I'm very non-competitive. I don't like to win. I like to do well at things, but when I win, I beat somebody, and I don't like that. Like, I will apologize at game nights when I win. And so that aspect of sports makes me really uncomfortable. But I know logically that I could have a child who wants to play a sport. And so I've like made up rules in my head about the situation. So one is no football. No one's playing football. If you want to get a concussion, you can do that when you're 18 and live somewhere else. But other sports, so I made up two rules, is that if you want to play a sport, that's fine, but you also have to do some sort of like artistic extracurricular. So like you also have to learn an instrument or take dance or something like that, which is completely me like placing value judgments on activities. And I know that, but I just don't like what the sports mentality does to a lot of people. And I'd like to counteract it with something a little bit more soft and collaborative. So that's my first rule. And the other is that if you ever cry about losing, we're done. Maybe that's like unrealistic for a kid, but I so don't like the idea that winning matters that much, because to me, if you win, somebody else loses. So I just feel like if you get in the car and you're like, I'm so upset we lost the game, I'm going to be like, well, if you didn't lose, they would be upset. Do you want them to be upset? No. So did you have fun? Did you see your friends? Did you enjoy yourself? Did you do your best? That sort of thing. I feel like I'm going to end up having luck where I get some like wrestling obsessed, like ultra competitive child just to hurt me. But right now, that's the rule that I made in my head. So that's like not necessarily the controversial parenting tag, but it's one of the things that I very strongly think now that is likely to change over time. But like I said, I think for the most part, I'm pretty level-headed about these things. There's a couple where I have strong opinions, but it will be interesting to see what happens, because I am very kind of hippy-dippy, very into all the like natural birth and attachment parenting and that sort of thing. So it'll be fun to see what happens, especially as it'll be just me. So sometimes it might be about what's the easiest and what gets the baby to sleep or away the quickest or something like that. So that is my before version of the controversial parenting tag. Hopefully I'll watch this in a couple of years and be like, you were so smart or something like that. But I'm sure I'll roll my eyes at myself and my own naivete. So yeah, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave comments as long as they aren't like, you're a terrible heathen or something like that. And I will hopefully be back soon with some updates. Thanks, guys.